This is a fan-based parody. All rights to the Poirot TV show are reserved by ITV. All rights to the Poirot novels, on which it is based, are owned by the Agatha Christie estate. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of True Crime Fiction. For those of you new to the channel, what we do here is we take crime fiction TV shows and movies and turn them into a true crime narrative. This way you get to enjoy the tension of a true crime show without all the gory details. Remember to like and subscribe for more intriguing adventures. Now enjoy the show. Our story starts in a carnival by the pier in the evening. The sky is clear, and there are children laughing and playing, dancing, singing, and eating yummy food as they enjoy themselves. Our focus shifts from the cheerful carnival to a man named Henry Gascoigne, who is gravely ill. Gascoigne is too unwell to properly respond, so his housekeeper, Miss Hill, expresses gratitude to the doctor for his services and shows him out of the room. Miss Hill then summons Gascoigne's nephew, George Lorimer, to share the unsettling news with him. Lorimer expresses his remorse, explaining that he won't be able to visit his ailing uncle due to some important theatre business he must take care of. Despite her best efforts, Miss Hill can't persuade Lorimer to visit his uncle. He remains steadfast in his decision to attend to his theatre business, despite the fact that time is running out for Gascoigne. Lorimer shares that he can only make it to Brighton by Sunday at the earliest. Miss Hill inquires whether Gascoigne's brother, Henry, can arrive in time, but Lorimer informs her that he too will be unable to make the trip, but rather an issue of the brother's indifference. He informs Miss Hill that Henry simply doesn't want to make the journey. Lorimer explains that the brothers haven't spoken to each other in 2 decades and that there is no reason to start now. With a sense of resignation, Miss Hill says her goodbyes. We find Hercule Poirot and Miss Lemon busily engaged in some mundane tasks. Meanwhile, Hastings is eagerly listening to a cricket match on the radio, hanging on every word. Although Poirot is preoccupied with work, he grudgingly allows Hastings to indulge in the cricket match. Despite his attempts to focus on his tasks, Poirot finds himself periodically sidetracked by Hastings' enthusiastic commentary on the game. Finally, after completing his tasks, Poirot readies himself to visit his dentist, Mr. Morley. While it might seem quite peculiar that Poirot would choose to visit his dentist instead of indulging in a murder investigation, this particular appointment holds significance. Poirot isn't attending a standard dental appointment. Instead, he is off to enjoy dinner at the Bishop's Chop House. Before departing, Poirot exchanges pleasantries with Hastings and Miss Lemon, bidding them farewell as he makes his way to the restaurant. The Bishop's Chop House is a charming establishment, offering comforting British cuisine without pretense. Given his dedication to duty and traditional values, Poirot finds this simple, honest fare to be perfectly suited to his tastes tonight. Poirot trusts Mr. Morley's judgment and lets him order a sumptuous meal for the two of them, which includes tender turkey with chestnut stuffing accompanied by a serving of delicate fillet of sole and a bottle of finest champagne to round out the feast. Despite the pleasurably evening and delectable meal, Poirot continues to suffer from debilitating gum inflammation, which serves as a constant discomfort and a barrier to him fully enjoying the night. The evening takes an unexpected turn, as Poirot's attention is diverted from his meal by a curious incident that captures his intrigue for the rest of the night.
Henry Gascoigne, a painter of some sort, I'm told.
Well, he's at that table every Wednesday and Saturday evening, never misses. Except last week, he arrived on Monday. Gave me quite a turn.
An interesting deviation from habit. I wonder what the reason was.
Well, I reckon he must have forgot himself. You know, he can't bear suet puddings or blackberries, and I've never known him take thick soup. Yet last Monday, do you know what he ordered? Thick tomato soup, steak and kidney pudding, and washed it all down with a blackberry crumble.
Mon Dieu.
And he was back again on Wednesday as usual, his old self again. Anyway, I mustn't stand here gossiping.
She's a good girl, that. And she knows a thing or two about food. You know, I find that extraordinarily interesting. What? That old man's deviation from habit.
With the day's dawning, life progresses as it does every other day, with people going about their usual routines and attending to their everyday activities. The city buzzes with activity as cars and pedestrians make their way through the streets, while a newsboy calls out the latest headlines. Meanwhile, a milkman goes about his routine delivering fresh dairy products to eager households. On the surface, everything appears routine, except for one minor detail. The milk Miss Mullen, Henry Gascoigne's landlady, observes a peculiar sight. Several empty milk bottles pile up on the doorstep of his house, which strikes her as quite unusual. Miss Mullen found the absence of a response to her knocking rather strange. It crossed her mind that perhaps Mr. Gascoigne could have collected the empty bottles, but clearly that wasn't the case. Something seemed amiss. Undeterred, Miss Mullen tries again, rapping on the door once more. Silence greets her knocking once again. Growing increasingly concerned, she enlists the help of several passers-by to pry open the door, unable to ignore the growing sense of unease that has engulfed her. What they discover is beyond the worst they could have anticipated. There on the floor, beside the staircase, lies the motionless form of Mr. Henry Gascoigne, his body cold and devoid of life.
Here's a funny thing, Poirot. Remember that old fellow we saw at Bishop's the other night? The one that Molly remarked on, about how he changed his diet. Try not to talk. Well, I'm afraid he's eaten his last blackberry crumble. Poor old chap's kicked the bucket. Seems when he got home that night, he fell down the stairs of his lodgings.
As soon as he receives the news, Poirot, accompanied by Hastings, promptly proceeds to the residence of the late Mr. Gascoigne. Initially, the landlady proves rather uncooperative and skeptical, questioning the authenticity of Poirot and Hastings' identities. Under further questioning, the landlady reveals that the last time she saw Mr. Gascoigne was on the previous Saturday evening. She notes that his behavior was unusual and different from his usual demeanor. Generally speaking, nothing about Mr. Gascoigne's behavior seemed particularly out of the ordinary. However, he had a reputation for being a creature of habit. Every Sunday evening during his routine walk, he would invariably greet Miss Mullen, showering her in warm words and a friendly smile. On the preceding Saturday, however, Mr. Gascoigne broke with his tradition and walked past Miss Mullen without acknowledging her presence. Instead of his usual warmth and recognition, he treated her as if she was a complete stranger. Admittedly, the change in behavior might not seem particularly noteworthy at first glance. However, when combined with the apparent switch in his diet, Poirot's suspicion grows stronger, hinting at a larger and more complex situation than it initially appeared. After some time, Poirot and Hastings are finally granted entry to the house. However, they find the body is no longer present. The police have already taken it away for a thorough examination. Alongside the deceased, there was another presence in his life, a young woman named Dulcie Lane. Poirot decides to pay her a visit, hoping to gather more information about the late Henry Gascoigne. Though initially taken aback by the interruption, Dulcie Lane graciously takes a moment to answer some questions from Poirot, offering her assistance to aid in the case. One of the details she volunteers is that the deceased had a brother named Anthony, and she shows Poirot a photograph to help identify him. The resemblance is striking, with the two brothers sharing a strong familial likeness. Hastings also pipes up and remarks that the two could easily be mistaken for twins, as their resemblance is so uncanny. Poirot takes in the observation with interest, acknowledging the striking similarity shared by the brothers. She further reveals that the late Henry Gascoigne had a unique agreement with his agent Peter Makinson. This insight implies that he was not only successful, but likely very financially stable. Dulcie's information paints a fairly straightforward portrait of Henry Gascoigne, describing him as an eccentric character. According to her, there were no unusual changes in his behavior, and physically, he appeared quite healthy. Armed with these new details, Poirot becomes increasingly certain that Henry Gascoigne was the victim of foul play, rather than a mere unfortunate accident. Poirot heads over to Scotland Yard, eager to share his suspicions with Chief Inspector Jack. The police offices now boast a newly established forensic division, equipped with cutting-edge technology and advanced instruments. The goal is to leverage these advances to apprehend even more perpetrators of crime. Jack expresses skepticism, not about the competence of the team or the reliability of the forensics. Rather, his concern lies in his belief that the available equipment may be too thorough. Jack harbors a deep concern that the advancements in forensic technology might render both his and Poirot's roles obsolete. He fears that with such precise and sophisticated tools at the disposal of law enforcement, detective work as they know it will become extinct, much like the doomed fate of the dodo bird. Reassuring him that the time for their roles hasn't run out. With a composed demeanor, Poirot asserts there is still plenty of time for both of them. Jack shares a crucial detail about the timing of Henry Gascoigne's death, informing Poirot that the approximate time was around or after 9:30 p.m. Interestingly, this information isn't derived from the cutting-edge technology in the forensics division, but rather through more conventional means. Jack mentions an intriguing detail about the case, an envelope that was found at the scene, dated for the 16th of June. What's notable about this envelope is that it was delivered alongside the 9:30 p.m. evening mail, suggesting a possible connection to the time of Gascoigne's demise. Hastings, amidst the unfolding details details of the case, queries Poirot about his interest in the investigation and how he learned about it in the first place. Poirot nonchalantly explains, "He was a friend of an acquaintance, and I only wished to bring some peace of mind." Poirot then inquires whether he can meet with the forensic pathologist, likely hoping to gain a deeper understanding of the case and any insights they may have gleaned from the examination of the body. Initially, Jack expresses his firm belief that the case is nothing but a tragic accident, showing skepticism that there is anything suspicious about the circumstances surrounding Henry Gascoigne's death. Jack delivers his stance with a firm and almost confrontational tone, but he ultimately yields to Poirot's request. Although he believes the case is a mere accident, he acknowledges that having Poirot's involvement won't interfere with their investigation and might even provide some additional perspectives. Jack promptly contacts the pathologist, Dr. Cutter, informing him that Poirot will be attending the autopsy, preparing the pathologist for the unexpected presence of the renowned detective. Encountering Dr. Cutter for the first time, Poirot notices a tall, imposing figure with an air of authority. Despite his formidable appearance, Cutter exudes a warm and welcoming demeanor, eager to assist in the investigation. According to Dr. Cutter's expert opinion, Henry Gascoigne's demise was the result of an accident. He explains that the victim fell down the stairs and sustained a fractured neck and collarbone, ultimately leading to his untimely death. Unexpectedly, Poirot turns his attention to the victim's teeth, inquiring of the pathologist, "Monsieur, is it possible that he experienced a seizure of the heart or brain?" The unusual query piques Cutter's interest, wondering where Poirot's line of questioning is leading. The pathologist, Dr. Cutter, responds with a firm and resolute "no," firmly dismissing the possibility Poirot had suggested. His answer puts an end to this particular theory, at least for the time being. Dr. Cutter offers a curious bit of information. Henry Gascoigne had ingested dinner just a few hours before his demise. This detail adds an intriguing layer to the timeline of events leading up to the tragedy. Having gathered the relevant information, Poirot requests that the note discovered in the victim's pocket be handed over. He is eager to examine this crucial piece of evidence more closely, hoping it will shed some light on the case. Initially, the doctor expresses hesitation in surrendering the note, viewing Poirot with skepticism. However, Cutter quickly reconsiders, viewing Poirot as a trustworthy figure, and reluctantly hands over the note. Inside the cozy confines of Poirot's home, a delicious dinner spread awaits. The centerpiece of the meal is a delectable rabbit liege, a dish that Poirot fondly remembers his mother preparing as a young child. Despite Poirot's own toothache preventing him from fully enjoying the meal, he graciously allows Hastings to sample his culinary creation, eagerly seeking an opinion on the dish he holds in high regard. Hastily, Hastings jumps in, expressing his eagerness to taste Poirot's cooking before even having a chance to take a bite. Poirot observes with a mixture of amusement and curiosity, wondering if his cooking will meet the lofty expectations presented. Poirot gently chides Hastings, asserting, "No, to use the knife is an insult to the chef. It implies that the meat is tough and chewy." Poirot takes great pride in his cooking and is quick to correct Hastings' manners. Despite his best efforts to indulge in the meal, Hastings finds himself interrupted by Poirot's offer of additional sauce. With a slight sigh, he politely declines, opting to relish the current portion without any further enhancements. Hastings explains that he enjoys the dish as is, praising the tender meat, flavorful sauce, and distinct taste of the rabbit. Pleased by Hastings' compliment, Poirot wishes he could savor the meal himself. Hastings curiously inquires about the contents of the note that was found on Gascoigne's person.
What was in that envelope they found in old Gascoigne's pocket?
Huh? You are invited to a preview of contemporary European paintings recently acquired by the Farringdon Gallery. This may be both informative and pleasurable, Hastings. And it's tomorrow.
As they proceed through the gallery, Hastings expresses his disdain for the artwork on display, finding it rather unappealing and lacking in artistic merit. Indeed, Hastings finds the artworks too abstract to comprehend, with their meanings escaping him completely. A kind elderly gentleman, the curator of the exhibition, emerges to shed some light on the enigmatic artworks. He explains the significance and symbolism behind the abstract pieces, helping Hastings gain a deeper understanding of what he initially dismissed as gibberish. Despite Hastings' continued puzzlement over the painting before them, Poirot finds intrigue in the revelation that the curator is indeed Peter Makinson, the art agent of the late Henry Gascoigne. Makinson proves to be a useful source of information, providing valuable insights into the case. He reveals the nature of the unique arrangement he had with Gascoigne, shedding light on the complexities of their business relationship. Makinson reveals a peculiar restriction. Gascoigne forbade the sale of his large-scale oil-based paintings, only authorizing the sale of smaller pieces such as sketches rendered in water-based mediums. Makinson explains Gascoigne's rationale, stating that he feared his artwork would fall into the hands of individuals who would fail to appreciate its true value. or Philistines, as Gascoigne called them. Any individual possessing even one of these rare paintings stood to profit significantly, as their considerable value and scarcity would command a large sum in the marketplace. During the conversation, Mr. Makinson deduces that neither Poirot nor Hastings are art collectors, as their limited knowledge of art terminologies betrays their lack of familiarity in the art world. Poirot reveals his identity and the true nature of their visit, prompting Makinson to offer his full cooperation in the investigation. In the privacy of Makinson's office, a large, stylized painting of a nude woman takes center stage on the wall. This particular painting, though seemingly ordinary, depicts a striking subject. Charlotte Gascoigne, the late wife of Anthony Gascoigne, who passed away approximately 10 years ago. Despite a strained relationship between the brothers, Henry Gascoigne had entrusted Makinson with the safekeeping of this particular painting, likely due to its emotional significance. Makinson shares that Henry Gascoigne was certain that his brother would not want a life-size painting of his deceased wife Charlotte's naked figure to be publicly displayed and viewed by strangers. Poirot and Hastings have gathered all the crucial information from Makinson for the time being and decide to head back home. Poirot, eager to share his insights, gathers his thoughts on the case so far and begins to lay out the facts to Hastings, who is preoccupied with his upcoming cricket break.
420 blackbirds baked in a crumble.
I think you mean pie, don't you?
Hastings, tonight we must visit the theatre.
What's all this about blackbirds, Poirot?
That Saturday evening, Henry Gascoigne finished his meal with the blackbird, or rather the blackberry crumble. Now, the juice of the blackberry leaves a dark stain, and yet the teeth of Henry Gascoigne were not discolored. I looked most particularly.
Oh, then the waitress must have been mistaken. It's easily done, you know.
According to the pathologist, Henry Gascoigne died 2 hours after eating the light meal. Now, I do not consider soup, followed by the steak and kidney pudding, to be the light meal. But suppose that meal was not dinner, but lunch.
But the old boy was seen at the restaurant at 7:30. You saw him.
Yes, but that was not Henry Gascoigne.
Although he has made progress, Poirot realizes that he still lacks certain crucial pieces of the puzzle, leading him to seek out someone who may possess the information he needs. They locate Miss Dulcie Lane, engrossed in a live painting session where she is serving as a model. To Poirot's surprise, Miss Lane reveals that she possesses quite a substantial collection of Henry Gascoigne's paintings, amounting to a total of 7. She highlights that each painting holds great monetary value, stating that any one of them could be sold for a considerable sum. Miss Lane's collection of 7 Gascoigne paintings has garnered significant attention, with offers pouring in. The prospect of selling all 7 paintings would ensure a lavish lifestyle for her. It becomes clear that Miss Lane is genuinely fond of Gascoigne, making it understandable why the mere suggestion that she might have caused his death upsets her. Despite the tempting financial offers, she has firmly refused to part with the paintings, likely out of a sense of loyalty and affection towards the deceased artist. Despite not uncovering any new evidence, Poirot and Hastings consider Miss Dulcie Lane out of the suspects. The list of possible killers continues to shrink, leaving them with only a few select individuals to consider. Poirot and Hastings make their way to the Carlton Theatre, intending to meet with its director, George Lorimer. While heading to the theatre, Poirot and Hastings engage in a conversation about the mysterious man who posed as Gascoigne at the Bishop's Chop House. Hastings jumps to the conclusion that the mysterious impersonator could be Anthony Gascoigne, Henry's twin brother. Poirot concurs that Anthony would be a prime suspect in this mystery, but he maintains an open mind and continues to contemplate other possibilities. Poirot also considers the motive behind these events and ponders the purpose behind the impersonating. Poirot and Hastings pause their discussion to observe a short play being performed at the theatre. Hastings is thoroughly entertained by the performance, frequently laughing and enjoying himself. Poirot, however, has a more subdued reaction, appreciating the show but with less overt outward expression of amusement. Poirot and Hastings make their way up the sweeping staircase towards the director's office, but upon arriving, they discover that George Lorimer is not present. Surprisingly, the director is nowhere to be found, but his assistant, Harry Clark, waits with some important information that could throw the entire case off track.
Monsieur George Lorimer?
No, actually, I'm Harry Clark, George's assistant. He's not here tonight.
Ah. Can you tell me where I might find him this evening, monsieur?
Well, I'm afraid not. He's out of town. In Brighton, attending to his uncle's funeral arrangements.
In Brighton?
Yes, is there something wrong?
No. C'est difficile, monsieur. You see, we were led to believe that Henry Gascoigne would not be buried until next week, and then here in London.
Henry, you've got the wrong chappie. George was talking about his uncle Anthony. Died last week.
Anthony?
Yes, funeral's tomorrow.
This revelation leaves Poirot and Hastings in a state of shock, as their main lead is now dead, and there are only a few threads to pull on. Their focus now turns to Monsieur George. With limited options, Poirot and Hastings decide to venture to Brighton in hopes of unearthing new information from the late victim's nephew. They arrive just in time to witness the casket being lowered into the ground. They stand at a distance, waiting for the ceremony to conclude and the mourners to disperse before attempting to speak to the nephew. On the spur of the moment, Poirot concocts a falsehood, explaining that he was a former associate of Henry Gascoigne who parted ways with him in the distant past. Mr. Lorimer believes Poirot's story and expresses gratitude to him. As the number of guests dwindles, Lorimer expresses gratitude for any attendee that takes the effort to come to the funeral. During their conversation, Poirot's gaze drifts over to a woman dressed in mourning attire, concealed beneath the black veil of her hat. Poirot initially presumes this woman to be Charlotte Gascoigne, the deceased wife of Anthony Gascoigne. However, Lorimer clarifies that the woman is actually the late victim's secretary and housekeeper, Miss Hill. Lorimer explains that Charlotte Gascoigne passed away over a decade ago, and since her death, Anthony Gascoigne has become increasingly reclusive, even more so than his late brother, who was already quite isolated. Lorimer notes that Anthony Gascoigne was never quite the same after his wife's passing. In a gesture of hospitality, he invites Poirot and Hastings for tea, and they happily accept. Poirot weaves a new tale, claiming that his own passion for art did not live up to Henry Gascoigne's talent or ambition. Lorimer, once more, accepts Poirot's fabrication without suspicion. While Miss Hill manages to pour a cup of tea, her trembling hand causes a small spill onto the tablecloth. Hastings sees that Miss Hill is clearly struggling and offers to assist her, but his kind gesture is met with a sharp rejection from her. Poirot skillfully employs a bit of misdirection by feigning ignorance about the brothers' relationship. His ploy works flawlessly, as Lorimer takes the bait and prepares to divulge the story of the rift between the brothers. Lorimer explains that the origins of the brothers' feud lie in their shared affection for Charlotte Gascoigne. Back when the brothers were young, both were courting the woman, but Anthony was the one who ultimately won her heart, leaving Henry with a broken heart and a deep grudge against his brother. Poirot then approaches Miss Hill to engage her in conversation, hoping to glean any additional details that may be of use. Hastings preoccupies himself with the cricket scores, eagerly anticipating the outcome of the match. Miss Hill divulges a vital bit of information, a real gold nugget if you will, suggesting that Anthony Gascoigne had no will to his name. Poirot empathizes with Miss Hill's situation, as she devoted her years to maintaining Anthony's estate, only to discover that she won't receive anything in return for her loyalty. Anthony's lack of a will was not a deliberate act of malice. Rather, he deprived his own brother and nephew of any financial gain as well, leaving all his wealth without any beneficiaries. Miss Hill provides Poirot with her honest opinion about the nephew, albeit not factual information, but rather a personal assessment. She describes him as a rather dull young man with some peculiar habits, which are not exactly flattering to say the least. In a blunt assessment, Miss Hill expresses his disappointment in Mr. Lorimer, stating that he does not deserve the inheritance because he neglected to visit Anthony in his dying days. Poirot's last question is if she could confirm the time of Anthony Gascoigne's death, to which she replies he died the previous Friday, at 1 p.m. to be exact. With the new information at hand, Poirot and Hastings travel back to the agency in order to sift through all the facts and attempt to solve the mystery before them. How did the killer effectively assume Gascoigne's identity long enough to commit the murder and then dispose of the disguise without leaving behind any clues? It's not so simple to get rid of a disguise without drawing attention to oneself. Lost deep in thought, Poirot suddenly finds the answer as he passes by a public men's lavatory. Poirot heads in the lavatory to be greeted by a rather well-dressed bathroom attendant. Noting the striking tie he wears, he inquires about its origins, starting a conversation, and bluntly states that the bathroom attendant may be arrested for assisting with a murder if he isn't completely truthful. The bathroom attendant admits to discovering the disguise in the trash while doing his job, and originally intended to sell it, merely acting in his own self-interest to make a quick buck. Poirot and Hastings proceed to the attendant's office-like area and discover additional items such as a suit jacket and trousers, providing further clues. Poirot wastes no time in contacting Chief Inspector Jack, eager to bring the truth to light. Poirot and Chief Inspector Jack, along with other officers from Scotland Yard, are already present on stage as George Lorimer arrives at the theatre. Lorimer, utterly perplexed, approaches the stage, demanding an explanation for the commotion in his theatre. An officer from the forensics team interrupts Lorimer, informing him that they have discovered some hair strands. The officer reveals that they've discovered white strands of hair matching the disguise and light brown strands likely belonging to the murderer. To help Lorimer understand, Poirot takes the time to thoroughly explain the sequence of events and all the evidence gathered so far. That the killer sought out Gascoigne and found an invitation to an exclusive gallery reception hidden in the late artist's desk. That the killer altered the details on the invitation to make it seem like it was mailed on June 16th at 9:30. A crucial piece of the puzzle. Poirot demonstrates his knowledge by revealing the forged details with a simple chemical test, proving that the invitation was mailed a day early, at 5:30. Taking advantage of the forged invitation, disguised himself as Gascoigne and went to the bishop's chop house. Although Anthony Gascoigne appeared to be the main suspect, this was disproven by his untimely death, leaving Poirot with the need to find a new person of interest. Poirot rules out Miss Lane and Makinson, leaving them innocent and Lorimer as the only one still in question. Lorimer maintains his innocence, claiming he watched the second performance that night. But Chief Inspector Jack disputes this, revealing that the theatre staff and performers have confirmed that Lorimer was nowhere in sight. Poirot confronts Lorimer, accusing him of wanting Gascoigne dead to inherit the estate, which would now pass on to Henry and therefore Lorimer. Poirot continues, explaining that with Gascoigne gone, Lorimer would inherit all of his valuable possessions, including the paintings, prompting him to enact his murderous plan. Despite his ability to mimic his uncle's appearance, he couldn't convincingly imitate Henry Gascoigne's mannerisms, ultimately leading to his own undoing. In a last-ditch attempt to escape, Lorimer tries to make a break for it, but he doesn't even manage to step off the stage before the officers close in, arresting him on the spot. Once Lorimer is taken away, Poirot, Hastings, Chief Inspector Jack and Mr. Morley head to the local pub, the Gallant Endeavour, for a well-deserved meal and a moment of relaxation. Amidst the merriment in the pub, Poirot reveals that he has a surprise up his sleeve, hinting at yet another twist to come.
Extraordinary. Listen. Verity takes 14 wickets for 70 runs on a day when England bowl out Australia twice to win the second test. 6 wickets in the last hour.
And after the weekend rains, you are surprised, mon ami? Australians are used to hard pitches. The Lord's wickets would have been decidedly sticky, no? So it's not a day for the stroke play. No, it's a day for the art of spin bowling. And Hedley Verité is the greatest exponent alive. Bowling left arm, the leg breakers to the right-handers. He would have them marching through the long room in no time. He has flight variation, the Chinaman. And the most deadly quicker ball that dips into a yorker. Oh, yes. On such a day, Monsieur Verité would consider, what, 14 for 70? A fair haul.
And that's it, folks. Thank you all for taking the time to listen. If you want to hear more of these gripping tales, make sure to like, comment, and hit the bell icon to get notified when we release more videos. Thank you again, and goodbye.